Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. As we move from a very rural agrarian society of about 100 years ago to where over 70% of the world's population will be living in urban areas by 2050, and we have 2 billion more people, how are we going to move these people around? How are we going to provide the transportation, the road systems, all the infrastructure that's going to be needed? But at the same time is how can we address climate change and also reduce the dependency on fossil fuels? We have a gentleman sitting with us who has been very active in this for a number of years. His name is Dineen. He is the instructor, auto show host for the Electric Vehicle Association of Greater Washington, D.C. I like that name, Greater Washington, D.C. Dennis, welcome.
Well, thank you.
And if we can bring up the first slide, we're going to show actually Dennis's car that he has here, and we're going to be talking about this. And I'm going to move back and forth, Dennis. I just love the fact of this is your charging station.
That is.
Tell us about it.
Well, I don't have a garage. I pull in my driveway every night and plug it in. The charge cord is hung on a tree branch near the car. I just plug it in, go in at night. It's very much like your cell phone, except a bit larger. And when I come out in the morning, the car is charged, and I have about 40 miles of electric power to drive that day. If I exceed that, then I have a gasoline backup, but most days I don't.
Well, looking at the automobile here, I'm just going to move between the two of these. I mean, this is really a very nice looking automobile, very stylish. But really what you do is actually you pull your cord from the tree, which actually is a 110, correct?
That is correct. It's a 110.
And you plug it right into your car.
It's very simple. A lot of people have this misconception that it's complex. It's not. It's simply, I would plug it in as you do your cell phone. And overnight, it's fully charged every single morning. I leave, or I have available 40 miles of electric power.
Well, looking at this is one of the things that many people say, do I have, they have this extended range fright. But they say most people, and it's almost identical for a very small country like Austria, it's about 27 miles a day that people travel. And so if you have 40 miles, it's actually quite sufficient to do that. But looking at, before we get into the charging stations and all that, tell us a little bit about the Electric Vehicle Association of Greater Washington.
We're an association. Simply, our main reason for being is to promote electric vehicles. An awful lot of people find electric vehicles to be strange or exotic or scary or whatever, and we're trying to, among other things, trying to get them to understand they're very ordinary, everyday vehicles. The only significant difference between them is that they run on electric power, which you get from the grid, rather than petroleum, gasoline, that is acquired often from other parts of the world. The cars perform flawlessly. In fact, they're mechanically much simpler than a gasoline engine.
Yeah, well, there's far fewer parts. You're using less fluids, so you don't have, and particularly in the all-electric, you don't have to worry about the antifreeze and a lot of the oils and all these other kinds of things. So it makes a very simple automobile. But looking at this is very sophisticated as far as this charging station is concerned. Tell us what we're actually seeing and where are these located?
Well, these particular ones are in Arlington, Virginia, in the basement of in a parking garage, and they're available all over the city. In fact, there's several hundred of them scattered around the city now. Most of them are free, and the reason the merchants would provide these is to attract people like me who are happy to come in and pick up a few free miles off that charging station. It costs nothing. And the reason they do it is I'm inside shopping while that car is charging.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it looks, you know, very high tech and very modern with the wind turbines in the background. Now, looking at this next photograph here, you're seeing you, and you're actually plugging it in. And again, go back to the simplicity, Dennis, and just how easy it is to really operate and maintain these vehicles.
It is. I've had mine for about 19 months now. I've had zero maintenance problems. I have traveled approximately 17,000 miles, and I've used 62 gallons of gasoline.
62 gallons of gasoline and 17,000 plus miles?
17,500 and some odd.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. And looking at it, we're having these charging stations. I know this is something that's happening in urban areas all over the United States and actually around the globe. Many of the European countries and places like Japan, even China now, is having a number of these charging stations. And it really is much less expensive to have that. Even though the car is a little more expensive initially, as the long term, it really is a good payback. It
absolutely is. Electricity is between 1/3 and 1/4 the cost of gasoline for the same, going the same distance. Approximate numbers based on the electricity rates in my area. When I'm driving on electricity, it's costing me about 3 cents a mile. An ordinary sedan, if gasoline is around $4 a gallon, an ordinary 25 miles to the gallon car is 16 cents a mile.
So tell us those numbers again, the difference between the mileage, the cost?
When I'm running on electricity, it is 3 cents a mile. When I am running on, when an ordinary sedan, a 25 mile per gallon sedan is running on gasoline, it's about 16 cents a mile. The Volt is a very efficient car. Even when it's running on gasoline, it will only cost me about 10 cents a mile.
Oh, that's incredible savings that you have. Now we're looking at these control panels here, and these are screenshots. Tell us what we're looking at here, and what is the significance of this?
Well, okay, the larger numbers were the speed I was traveling. The one on the left side, the 19, I was doing 19 miles an hour. Below that is the number of miles that I traveled. I mentioned it, 17,500 approximately, and I have burned 62 gallons of gasoline. Since you have an international audience, I switched. The car is a very smart car, and I simply switched, and it now gives me all the information in the metric. At that point, I was traveling 70 kilometers per hour, and I have traveled a distance of around 28,300 kilometers using 230, I can't go, 230 liters of fuel.
Yeah.
So
you have it
they're essentially the same thing, just delivered
right. Yeah, and the old British imperial numbers, and then the metrics, which is much more efficient. Looking at these automobiles, I'm going to go back to this right now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions about, of course, the batteries, as far as the automobiles are concerned. One, what is the typical kind of battery that are in these types of vehicles? And then could you address a little bit about how long they last and the cost?
Well, they are lithium-ion batteries. Now, they come with the car. That's part of what makes the car more expensive initially. Again, of course, much higher cost to buy, much cheaper cost to operate. Right. The batteries on all these vehicles have a 100,000-mile warranty. Very quickly, these questions about batteries was asked also about the Priuses 10 years ago. There was expectation that they might not last. We now know, because Priuses have been out there, that they last quite a long time. And in fact, there are Prius taxicabs on the road who've got 250,000 miles and still have the original batteries.
Yeah.
The batteries are very, very well built, much better built than a laptop or a cell phone or whatever.
I was going to say, going back to the batteries of these vehicles, I have talked to people that have had the Prius, actually some of the very early models, and they have yet to change their batteries, and they were told that you may have to change it within 5 or 6 years, and no one I've met yet has actually has had that particular experience as far as having to change that. So looking at these charging stations, they're very simple and also very efficient. And it seems like that more and more of these are just popping up all over the place.
They are, all over. The retailers are all realizing that the advantage of putting them in is people will come just for the pleasure of charging. But they're not giving up very much. If if I sat at that station for 4 hours, I would fully charge my battery. The merchant would pay only a little over $1 for that gasoline he gave me. Meanwhile, I'm perhaps in his store spending $50 or $60.
Well, and the whole thing too about that, Dennis, is that if you look at the dollar and investment ratio as far as the electricity is concerned, I mean, that's far less than what you're even paying for parking in the parking deck.
Right, it is. It is very cheap, and it's kind of nice. A lot of them, they're very prime parking places.
Yeah,
they're kind of reserved, like handicapped areas.
Well, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this on here because this really goes to when I was over in Austria last year. They didn't have a single electric car when they first started their system over there. They put in 200 charging stations, and immediately their tourism rate went up 17%.
I can believe
because
that.
people were starting to drive in because they knew no matter where they went, they could go to the highest mountain on the ski resort, charge, or they could go shopping at the major shopping center in the capital city and do their charging. And so they've actually added another, they're going to 1,000 charging stations in that one state in Corinthia. And it's just, and they're just doing all kinds of novel things, putting charging stations in old phone booths, you know, because people have gone to cell phones, and it's just really amazing. So anyway, tell us about this.
About the
Yeah, this says vehicle
oh
charging.
yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, that is at the I was charging at that time. Just took, this is a screenshot. That's the screenshot from a charging station, and it shows I'm charging at a little over 3,000 watts of power. So that is being pumped into my battery, and this is at one of those places where the charging is free. So I'm getting that electricity for nothing.
And again, there's very little cost to the merchants to this. And this.
Oh, this is actually, that is looking in the back of the Volt. It's a hatchback, and I have it open. And that sign is just a response, my personal response to some people who have, I don't know, call it a political attitude towards the Volt.
Well, our political attitude towards electric cars.
Or electric cars in
or
general,
renewable
right.
in general. I don't think it's actually, the Volt's a very sleek and good-looking car. We're going to go out on this. We have about 15 seconds left. So Dennis, what would you like to share to our domestic and international viewers?
I would like to tell them that if never tried electric Volt or electric car, they need to, because that awesome, smooth power has to be experienced to really understand how great a car it is.
Yeah, and I spent 15 days in one, and I tell you, I just absolutely loved it. It was a great drive. And thank you for being with us and learning about the alternative energy vehicles as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Let's get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it!
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
best practices of the population here in Florida. So looking at this, what's the rate? Is that
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. and the United States, looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products as we move through the 21st century. Many of you know that we're going to be adding 2 billion new people to the planet by 2050, so that's why part of our theme is paving the way to 2050, a future Earth. And how we're going to take care of these people, and one of the things we're looking at is how we're going to be able to move people in those areas. And so when we look at 2 billion new people, we think of it in terms of nation states like the United States or Japan, China, India, Russia, places like that. But actually all this is really happening at the local level. And so there are going to be many local governments and local communities are going to have to deal with an influx of people as we move through the 21st century. Somebody, Joyce Breiner, who is here with me, she is the Executive Director of the Poolesville Green, and that's an environmental organization. And Joyce, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we have the announcement about your seminar you have and about your organization, but tell us a little bit about the Poolesville Green. What is it?
Well, Poolesville Green is a small nonprofit based in Poolesville, Maryland, western Montgomery County. And we try to educate the public on all things about how to live more sustainably in their lifestyle.
Now, we're going to throw in a little plug here for our mutual buddies, the Bethesda Green. So let's talk a little bit about Dave and Bethesda Green, and then we're going to move right into what you've been doing as far as educating people on renewable powered vehicles.
Sure. Bethesda Green is 5 years old now. They just had their birthday or anniversary. And we came along about 18 months after 3 co-founders of Poolesville Green got together, and as we were organizing, we found out about Bethesda Green, and they have been very generous in mentoring us along the way, and we have different focuses because we come out of different communities, different kinds of communities, but they've been very generous with us.
Well, I think the whole thing about Bethesda Green and what you're doing in Poolesville, because you actually cover 4 different communities and a part of Montgomery County, which is one of the most populous counties in the state of Maryland, is that it really is it's a local focus, and it's looking at sustainability, it's looking at renewable energy and energy conservation and all that. And so you serve a really important service as far as the local community is concerned.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly hope we are. We're Poolesville, I like to call it the first small town outside of D.C. We're surrounded by farmland and orchards and things like that. And so the small communities, have their own unique aspect to them. And so we try to address what's happening in that environment.
Well, looking at this, but if you look at this slide right here, you really is almost the forefront as far as electric vehicles and renewable energy vehicles. So how did Poolesville Green decide to get into holding these series of seminars and educating people about renewable power vehicles?
Well, we decided to start a series called What's It All About? And we've done different seminars like on solar and lighting, advances in lighting. And my husband actually mentioned that in December that we would have our Leaf. We own a Leaf, a Nissan Leaf. We'd have our Leaf for about a year. And wouldn't it be great to talk about what's it like to own a Leaf and a year in the life of an electric car owner? And so that sounded like a great idea. We have other residents in the Poolesville area, and we're easy to tap into that, and so we developed a program.
Well, I think it's fantastic, and looking at the number of vehicles, it's obvious that there are a number of people within this area, and of course the concentration of such renewable fueled vehicles is very high in the Washington, D.C. area. But having this, I think it's really important. What are some of the topics that you actually covered in the presentation? And then we'll get into what do you think of maybe some of the outcomes were from that seminar?
Well, we covered the typical topics that come up every time we plug into a public charging outlet. Somebody might run up to you and say, well, how much range do you get, and what's the maintenance requirements like? So we went through and developed the topics of range anxiety, maintenance, battery issues, all those kind of things.
Well, looking at that, and that's really important, but I think when you pop the hood and then show people actually what's under there, the simplicity of it, and then also how easy it is actually to recharge or refuel, if you want to use that terminology, that people are just amazed how easy this is.
It is it's just like a cell phone, really. It's like owning a great big cell phone. And that's what we wanted to get across. It's fun, and they're zippy little cars, and they're really here now, ready for you.
Well, I know I had a chance when I was over in Austria to have a A-Class E-Cell Mercedes, and it was just amazing the torque that they had, but if you weren't careful, it would absolutely get away with you. They are definitely speed wagons, there's no doubt about it. But it looks like you really had a number of people that came out and participated and want to be involved. How did you actually market and promote this? And then how did you make people feel like, hey, this is something I want to give up my free time in order to learn about? Well,
this is actually a picture from September when Poolesville runs a day-long festival called Poolesville Day. And they have a little parade, so we wanted to start exposing members of the community to the electric car. So we designed some signs and gave some rides that day. It was really quite fun.
Well, getting the community involved, I think it's really important. I know that the various dealerships are trying to do this, but it really takes people like yourself. They're leaders within the local community. People look to for new ideas, new opinions, and this is really one way to get it out there and just let people know what's going on, but doing it in a fun and a very relaxed manner.
Yeah, we definitely want our programs to be fun and informal and informative. We try to add a little humor along the way, and we felt very much successful in that with our electric car program.
Well, you had people go back to school, so it's obvious that people are very serious about all of this. What makes such public presentations and demonstrations very effective as far as what do you want to say, is not indoctrination, but really just educating people as far as what is going on, the changes that are happening as far as vehicles, but also the changes in the climate itself and how they, in their own local home, can have a real impact.
Right. We really want to focus on how individuals, families can make changes that aren't necessarily very big changes, and usually are many changes that they don't affect their lifestyle. And how they can do that, and they can do it today. It's not something that's 20 years down the road, things that they can do today.
This is the whole thing, and I know this is something you do, is look through the whole list of the various activities that you have, and you do the energy efficiency and energy conservation and all that. And many people say, well, getting people to change light bulbs really doesn't have that much impact. But if you get, like in your community, you get 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 people changing their light bulbs and having very energy efficient LED lighting and all that, it makes a huge difference in the local community.
It does. Every little bit adds up. And so if everybody, like you say, if everybody changes their light bulbs, if the more people that put solar on their homes, if that's for them, the less we have to use dirty coal or oil or whatever.
Yeah, using the fossil fuels.
Right.
And I think this is something just showing the people really getting into looking at this car, this shows that people really do want to be educated and be introduced to what's going on.
They really do. It's not a day goes by that we run the cars and there's somebody asking something, or there's always a conversation almost every day.
Well, I think doing this kind of thing, Joyce, it's really very important because it allows people in the local community to come out and they see people just like themselves. And I think this is something that's very important, is that you know that your friends and neighbors actually are conscious of this, the need to make changes as far as the climate and the environment is concerned. And really by just adapting a little bit within our lifestyle, we can do that. So going on to Poolesville Green, what other kinds of things you're doing that actually relate to the alternative fuel cars and is making a difference in your community?
Well, we've done a little film, a student film in 2011 about biofuel and put that up there. It's on our website. We are going to continue. We wanted to focus on electric cars. There was an idea of maybe we could do more than just electric cars in one session, but really to make it time sensitive and be cognizant of everybody's time, we focused on just electric cars, and as we get more information and things become available on the market, then we'll do other programs as well for about other alternative fuels.
Well, I think that's fantastic. What would be about we're running out of time, we only have about a minute left. What are the 3 key things that you like to express, share with the people through Poolesville Green that can make a difference? Keep an eye out. It's here now. People can make a difference. Every little thing that you do has an impact, whether it's recycling or putting solar on your home or driving an electric car or changing those light bulbs or insulation. That's not a real fancy one, but it's an important one. Oh, well, these are all things that really make a difference. What are some of the next goals? We have about 30 seconds left as far as Poolesville Green. Well, Poolesville Green, with regard to electric cars, we want to see some public infrastructure, public charger infrastructure in Poolesville, and we will be working with the business and the local government on that. We're looking forward to doing more and more, spreading the word about what people can do. Well, I think what you're doing right here as far as getting people out and allowing them to exchange ideas and see what's going on, and also too, Joyce, I think it's just really making an impact within the community and allowing people to know that they can make a difference. And the fact that you're there and you're working hard on their behalf to make a real difference. So looking at Poolesville Green, this is Joyce Breiner, who is the Executive Director. And we're looking at various communities around the globe so that we can determine just how best to reach out, make changes, and address all the issues of climate change. And thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me. There's more than just books at the library.
Il y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
A lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
I don't want to be hooked to a machine.
I want all the medical treatment available to me.
I wouldn't want my family to have to make this decision.
My doctor knows what's best for me.
An advance directive is your life on your terms. Talk with your family. Decide what's right for you. Then put it in writing.
Documenting my wishes today means my family won't have to make heart-wrenching decisions later.
To learn more, visit www.putitinwriting.org.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is just a phone call away. 1-800.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C., looking around the globe in 144 different countries, looking for those 1,000 best practices that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we're looking away as how we're going to move people around the planet as we add 2 billion more people. And we have about almost 30% more people in urban areas and 300 cities, over 10 million people in each of those. And these are what are being called meta cities. And so we need to be able to move people very efficiently and at the same time to use renewable energy sources. We have a young man who started out at a very young age, and his name is Rami Bedawi. He's an inventor-designer, and I've given him that title. I'm not sure exactly how he would call himself, but he is in the single-person hybrid electric 200-mile-per-gallon commuter car. Whew, that's a long title. And this was a New York to Washington, D.C., and it's called the 1 Gallon Challenge. So, Rami, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we have this very interesting photograph here of you actually working on your vehicle, and I'm going to say not a car, but a vehicle. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, what is the 1 Gallon Challenge?
Well, basically, I spent 2 years about using off-the-shelf components to build a hybrid electric vehicle capable of very high efficiencies.
Well, looking at, I think it was you're trying, that's what I had in this long title here, you're trying to get about 200 miles per gallon, is that correct?
That's right. I was trying to go from New York City to Washington, D.C. on about a gallon of gas, so it's about 200 to 230 miles per gallon.
I tell you, it's just absolutely incredible, and you know, being able to just set out 2 years of your life and make this incredible challenge, what inspired you to do this?
Well, I've always been interested in cars since I was very small. At first, it was simply like racing purposes, more performance aspect more than anything else. And then after a certain age, I began to become more involved in what does the world actually need? And I began to think, well, what's the most efficient car I could build? And around that same time, I saw the X Prize competition in Washington, D.C., in which certain companies set out $1 million budgets in order to build these efficient vehicles. And to say the least, the results were disappointing, with the winner only barely surpassing about 100 miles per gallon. So my goal was to basically surpass them as far as I could, using the least resources possible.
I'll tell you, that's absolutely incredible, and I'm not sure if you had the $1 million budget as far as these major funders or not, but looking at this is a very sleek design. Now, you actually were using off the shelf, but you really designed this, and this is your own work. Tell us about how you created this, and what did you do to try to get something that was absolutely as aerodynamic and energy efficient as possible?
Well, as you mentioned, first of all, I didn't really have the budget as some of these other companies might have, so the first step was going to gain sponsors, and I was lucky enough that Mr. Robert Fogarty of Sport Chevrolet came forward and helped me get the project off the ground. So once I was able to get that started, I began building the metal frame you can see in the photo now, and that was the first challenge really to overcome. After that, I began to integrate the electrical components into the vehicle, and then after that was testing, and the thing started to progress very quickly.
Now, we're looking at this, and many people will say, well, this really looks more like a glorified tricycle or bicycle, something like that. But actually, this is where the world is really going, isn't it? As far as the looking at, we're really calling them people movers now instead of actually vehicles or cars. So looking at this concept you have while we have just the frame, what were you looking at here? What kinds of things that were you trying to incorporate into this to, again, make it very energy efficient but also safe?
Well, first of all, you can see the frame it has cross beams all over the place, so if you get hit, you will be safe, guaranteed. Also, I wanted to make sure it's as light as possible, which is why it's 2 wheels in the front, 1 in the back, yet still easy to drive. So any individual could easily drive this vehicle. And I think commuter vehicles are the future. You don't necessarily need to drive your large SUV or minivan to work every day when you can just drive a small, efficient vehicle like this.
Well, looking at this, and actually, I know that your ancestry, you came from Egypt, but if you look at many of the Middle Eastern countries and also in Southeast Asia, this is really the style going back, before World War II and times like that, where they had the single wheel in the back and the 2 wheels in the front. It's very stable and very efficient. And then you get the skin on it, and it looks like a very sleek modern racer.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, the fiberglass body was difficult to work with at times, but I think the end product looked very nice. I mean,
now looking at this, and I'm going to go back and forth between these two here because this is really getting loaded up and ready to get into the race. How did the car actually performed as you really got it on the road coming from New York, actually coming out of New Jersey back into Washington, D.C.?
Right, well, I left around 5:30 in the morning, and the original plan was to deplete the batteries a certain amount, take about maybe 30 minutes to get out of Jersey City, and hopefully be on the road after that and be able to perform much more efficiently on the highways. But unfortunately, it took much longer than expected. It actually took about 2 hours to get out of the city, completely depleted my battery pack, and at that point, it was pretty discouraged to say the least. However, after that, I turned on my generator, and everything performed beautifully, and the project was successful.
Well, I tell you, it's just incredible when we think about the traffic and all the vehicles out there, but something as small, you could actually put a whole lot more vehicles on the roadway if you had something this size, and instead of having a full-body car.
That's right, yeah. If everyone is driving a small vehicle like this, not only are the roads safer because you don't have these large vehicles colliding into these small ones and causing deaths every year, but you would lower emissions significantly and people are traveling around much more efficiently.
Well, and also, too, if you look at, I think your actual numbers that you had on this, it was almost around 185 miles, so you almost were exactly on your goal. You think of the amount of time you had to spend sitting in traffic. If you hadn't put up with that, then you actually probably would have exceeded the goals that you had. Now, looking at where you are now, tell us a little bit about how you set up the route that you chose, and the safety features that you put into this as far as, lead car and a follow car and all those kinds of things.
Well, when I was choosing the route, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going on the major highways, as the vehicle is not really capable of maintaining that sort of speed for that sort of distance. So I was taking parallel, smaller roads throughout the way. And while I was driving, I had a lead and a chase vehicle, always making sure I was able to navigate traffic safely and efficiently, and making sure I was able to obviously use GPS and get there in a prompt manner, I guess.
Now, planning this, and also, too, we have a few minutes left, and let's talk about challenging people in schools, whether it's in, K-12, probably high school, in shop classes, what have you, or the technical schools, and then the universities. How would you like to challenge them to look at this and maybe try to do their own 1-gallon challenge?
Well, I think that the best way to learn anything really is by hands-on experience. And if you really want to learn how a car works, you're best off building one and learning in the process how it works. And if you want to cause more progress, you need the maximum number of people working in a similar fashion, basically just trying to test their own knowledge and expand their knowledge so they can hopefully cause more revolutionary progression in the future.
Well, looking at this, and one of the things we talked about, I know that you actually had quite a bit of media coverage of this. People thought this was really a great idea. And so people that are very interested in looking at not only challenging themselves, but challenging society, how can you incorporate the media, the community support, and leading edge technology all in one package?
Well, I think you really have to start with just trying to promote to the public first, because once the public sort of grasps the idea and wants to progress with the idea, then they sort of cause the appeal to the media, and once the media gets a grasp of it, then sort of larger companies will start to take notice of it, and once they see that demand, maybe they'll try to incorporate this sort of design into more of their future products and create some much better vehicles, hopefully.
Well, I know I'm going back to this slide right here. I know that you actually had a car dealership that was interested and actually provided the support for this. How do you think that you can use that as a conduit back into the major national, international manufacturers so they can actually take and incorporate some of your ideas and put them in future vehicles?
Right. I mean, well, if it shows that if one car dealership is willing to sponsor you, why shouldn't all of them? If they should all be really embracing this sort of idea of, we don't need these large gas-guzzling vehicles, we just need these smaller ones that are going to get you where you need to go, and they'll get you there fast enough, and they'll get you there very efficiently, saving not only money for oil, but also the environment in the process.
Yeah, well, looking at this, and I put this in purposely, I really love this image that you have here, but it shows that it really can be a safe vehicle. It has the lights that you need, and I know you had the turn signals, everything that you needed to comply as far as on-road types of requirements for the highway department. So looking at this, what did you have to think about as far as not only the frame and the shell and all that, but other kinds of just normal driving safety features that you had to incorporate in this, actually, which is taking more energy from the battery and what you're doing?
Right, so, well, I had to make sure it passed all NHTSA regulations in order to get the vehicle street legal. And in order to do that, I had to have all the turn signals and lights, as you mentioned earlier. And I was trying to make sure I was getting the best performance out of my auxiliary package for the battery that it would be depleting in the process. And I knew that it would be depleting, and I just wanted to make sure I was not depleting too much that I wouldn't be able to finish the drive.
Okay, look at these lights. That's quite bright. Any particular special lighting that you used on this vehicle so it would cut down the drain on your battery?
No, not particularly. They were simply just aftermarket, off the shelf, as most of the parts in this vehicle were. So,
well, I think that's Rami. That's really fantastic as far as using off the shelf. And really, this is a fantastic photograph that shows the amount of interest, because you have a lot of media out, but you have people up and down the highway here is just watching what you're doing and as you're moving along. So as you're coming down the highway, coming out of New York down into Washington, D.C., did you find people just kind of turning out and looking at what's going on and say, wow, look at that guy?
Yeah, as I was passing different vehicles, they were always like taking pictures of my car and waving to me and stuff, and it was very cool. After every stop every stop, there were always people asking me questions, what are you doing? And they were always hugely supportive, and it was really rewarding.
Well, getting on the TV, I mean, this is WUSA. This is a major channel, and I'm sure that many people saw this around the United States, and so this is incredible. So this will really give you a juxtaposition as far as the frame and everything that you have, and then with the skin on it. We only have about 40 seconds left. Just tell us, what did you really learn out of this, and what do you think that you have to pass on to your generation and younger generations, but also to those that are in decision-making positions of authority?
Well, I think first of all, I learned you should always set high goals for yourself. And if you set high goals, you can achieve them with the right amount of dedication and support. And also never be afraid to ask questions, because without asking those people with the right knowledge questions, it'd be much more difficult. And I guess finally, never be discouraged. There were lots of challenges along the way, obviously, but you can succeed in your challenges if you try.
Well, I tell you, I think it's just fantastic. Rami Bedawi, who is the inventor-designer of this, what's called the 1 Gallon Challenge, and looking at this vehicle is just, I'm sure there's much you learned, but just the fact that you stayed at this for 2 years, I mean, that's a long period of time in today's world. To be at that. So thank you, dear viewers, for being with us on the Emerald Planet and bringing you new knowledge, new terminology as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One lit some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ripped off money. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire!
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go! Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People! The flood is imminent! Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet in Washington, D.C. And we come to you each week looking at the best practices in 144 different nations, looking for those technologies, the services, and the products. And we must add to that the people that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we've said before, as we add 2 billion new people to have almost 9 billion people, and over 70% of these people living in urban areas, how are we going to be able to move these people? What type of infrastructure are we going to be using? And what type of vehicles are people movers, I guess they're being called these days, and to be able to address the issue of having efficiency, to reduce the impact as far as fossil fuels on the environment, and also to actually create new green jobs. And we have two gentlemen with us, Malik Khattak, who is the president and founder, and his cousin Saul Khattak, who is a co-founder and chief technology officer of what's called EV Taxicabs LLC. So Malik, who's sitting right beside me, and Saul, glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And thank you for being on the Emerald Planet.
Tell
us a little bit about Malik as the president and founder. What is EV Taxicabs?
EV, electric vehicle taxi cab. The project started during my senior year college, and I worked about 2 years on this project to take the taxi industry into next level. Basically, reduce the use of gasoline in taxi cabs. That's the main goal, but beside the goal was to also introduce the new technology into common people, so that people can see that, hey, these electric cars can work, and it's something that can doable. It's not a toy car. That was the main goal, and that's how I started EV Taxi Cab.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic, and putting these on the road and having these in urban areas around the globe, specifically in the Washington, D.C. areas and other major cities in the United States, it really gets Malik to what you want to do is you're actually showing these are real cars, and if you can run taxi cabs as all electric, then anyone can use an all-electric vehicle.
That is correct. And besides running an electric car, it includes the savings, the less carbon prints on the environments, and plus it's lower cost to drive in, and it's a good thing to start it in a taxi rather than if somebody is hesitated to buy one. So if you actually sit in one car and you kind of test drive it, and you see the savings, you see the benefits of it, and more likely that you'll be one of the people driving one of the electric cars. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really such a great idea. And Saul, I was introduced to you through the Electric Vehicle Association of Greater Washington, D.C. I got to put that greater in there. And they are really very positive about what you're doing and feel like that you can have a real impact as far as reducing greenhouse gas emissions into the environment, and also reducing the use of fossil fuels. So how is this relationship with your company and the EVADC is mutually beneficial to everybody in the community?
We met AVDC about a few months ago when we actually applied to operate a taxi cab fleet here in our area. They are our biggest supporters in the area, and they've introduced us to a number of people, just like yourself. We work with them very closely. We try our best to join them everywhere possible. We're basically a one big family.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, one of the things that we've been talking with the EVA about a long time is what they call range anxiety, and how people say, well, you know, full battery, of course they're extending. They're now up to 60 and some vehicles even 80 miles. But people have this range anxiety in the United States and many other countries. How are you addressing that?
The only solution to range anxiety is the availability of fast charging infrastructure. We are planning on deploying a fast charging infrastructure in Washington, D.C. metro area. And at the same time, we are working on integrating electric vehicle charge monitoring system and a taxi cab dispatch software, where before a vehicle is dispatched, we already know if the vehicle can actually take the passenger to his or her destination and then get to the closest charger also. So that, you know, should help a little bit.
Well, you being the Chief Technology Officer, you're the one that's actually taking care of all those issues, yes, as far as routing people and making sure that you're fully charged. But what are the benefits of an all-electric fleet? Sal, and then I'm going to follow up with Malik.
An average cost of gallon today is about $3.58, I think, or about $3.60 per gallon. Now imagine running a fleet of 40 vehicles and not paying for gasoline. It's a lot of money saved. Electric vehicle has very few moving parts, so there is less maintenance on it. The federal government is offering tax incentives, and again, just, you know, becoming energy efficient, and, you know, so it's very helpful. Well,
it's actually using the technology, and these are technologies that already exist, so yes, it's not something that's exotic that it's very difficult to find. And now virtually all of your major international manufacturers are actually producing all-electric or the hybrid cars. Malik, looking at the all-electric vehicles, what about the safety features of all-electric or hybrid vehicle vis-a-vis a fossil fuel-powered vehicle?
They are rated 5-star vehicles when it comes to safety. They're very safe vehicles, and it looks small from outside, but they're really heavy vehicles from inside because of the battery below it. And the airbags, they're tested, and we just test drove one ourselves, and they're really safe vehicles, and they have a lot of space inside. So it does help when it comes to taxi cabs. It does help that if you choose the right vehicles. But electric vehicles are very safe vehicles. It's not just a regular when it comes to how about airbags or how about the weight, especially when driving in snow. But these vehicles are just a regular car. It's just like a regular car, but come back to the benefits. You don't do your oil change. It has very few moving parts. So this means less maintenance. So these are all the benefits when it comes to electric car.
Well, looking at another benefit too, and it's something we don't really think about, but by eliminating the use of all the different moving parts that you have in an automobile,
exactly, yes,
it's less wear and tear, and you're using less natural resources as far as producing those kinds of spare replacement parts. So looking at the infrastructure that you need, I know this is something that you've been very conscious about. I know you're working with the EVA DC on this. So how can you work with the local governments or with the major utilities as far as expanding the infrastructure, i.e. the charging stations, throughout the entire community?
The local utility companies are very supportive of us, and they like the idea of having the charging infrastructure deployed in the area. It's basically more business for them, and at the same time less dependency on foreign oil. The government is very supportive also. The government wants to see this happen. The government does want to see electric vehicle introduced into the public transportation arena. And we believe that we are here at the right time, at the right moment, basically, at the right place. And we want to deploy a fast charging infrastructure in the area to support our fleet. NRG and Nissan just announced that they will be installing a dozen of fast chargers in the DC metro area. The first NRG charger is coming up online in DC very shortly. I think it's a matter of a few weeks now. I will check with them to find out the exact date, but they should be bringing the first one online. So the infrastructure will be there. It's now a matter of time, whether EV Taxicab does it or whether NRG or Nissan or somebody else comes into it. But again, utility companies and the local governments, the federal governments, they're all very supportive of this idea.
Yeah, I know when I was in Austria and Carinthia, which is one of the 8 states there, they put in 200 charging stations. They didn't have a single car in the whole state. They just went ahead and put them in. And all of a sudden, all these people started showing up as tourists. So they were bringing more money into the community. So it was a fantastic idea. And then they went to added 200 more to 400. Now they're going to 1,000. So
wow.
the demand is definitely there. This is something, Malik, as president of your company, and talking about the difference between the electric and gasoline. We have this handy-dandy chart. Just give us an idea. Let's just go through this. This is really very interesting.
Yeah, so the chart is basically showing the cost of a regular gasoline car and an electric car. If you look at, especially look at the mileage, because nowadays that's the big deal, $3.65 a gallon, and it gives you 2 cents per mile compared to 12 cents per mile. It's a big difference. And the time to charging the car is coming down day by day. The more technology is improving, the charging time is reducing. And nowadays you can charge a car in under 30 minutes, which is good. Like if you go to a gas station, usually it takes about 10 minutes to fill up your car. You go fill up the car, you go buy a soda, candy, and come back at 10 minutes. So basically what people would do, they will go to a fast charging stations, plug the car in.
Or they just plug in their car at home.
Exactly.
And overnight, and it's
yeah.
all taken care of. And you don't have to really worry about it. But I tell you, this, going back to this 2 cents versus 12 cents a mile, that gets a lot of attention.
A lot of attention, yes.
And looking at it too, you said all these vehicles are 5-star rated. So that means that people actually can have a less cost as far as their insurance is concerned.
Yes, insurance. I'm not really sure about if the insurance gives you a break on the price of policy, but you have tax breaks. In some state, they give you tax breaks on it because they want to promote use of electric vehicles, especially state of Maryland. They give you up to I think $2,000 a tax break on when you purchase a vehicles, besides the federal tax credit that is out there for people. Yeah.
So looking at this, as far as you're looking at the electric taxi cabs, as far as regular taxi cabs, I know you're looking at incorporating this into the entire fleet, and we got to be quick. What's the impact of this?
Only benefits to it. There's nothing more than benefits to, having these chargers installed at taxi cab stands, where actually taxi cabs can, charge up while they're waiting on a customer at a hotel or at just a metro station.
Well, gentlemen, we're out of time, and we got about 6 seconds left, so I'm going to roll up. Thank you for being with us on the Emerald Planet as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.